Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this your tropical update for June 18th. We're currently watching potential tropical cyclone 1, which was Invest 91L yesterday. It could become a tropical depression or tropical storm within the next few days that it approaches the Mexican coast. We're also watching two areas of interest, one located south of Bermuda, heading towards the northern Bahamas, Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, as well as another area in the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the latest impact map, and I have not updated the position of the X's on the screen, but they really haven't moved a whole lot over the past few days. Again, now we're only to a moderate risk of impacts. I've decided to drop the rainfall risk from high to moderate because it's not going to be widespread 12 to 15. It's going to be widespread 5 to 10. So I've decided to drop down the rainfall risk to a moderate risk. In addition, you'll see a moderate risk of storm surge heading into Houston, Galveston Bay area, as well as a slight risk of storm surge heading as far north as central Louisiana. So that's certainly worth noting. Other than those two areas, most of the risk depicted is mainly due to wind, a little bit of, mainly due to rainfall. A little bit is due to wind. Here's the latest satellite image of potential tropical cyclone 1. You do see a very loose, weak rotation throughout the center of the storm. The highest winds, though, are far away from the center, up to the north and east of the center of the storm, as well as the convection very far away from the center. You see that north blob of convection on the top portion of the screen? That's where all the rainfall is going to be. So even though this storm makes landfall, or likely will make landfall in Mexico, the worst impacts may actually be in Texas. As a result, tropical storm warning now in effect from Port O'Connor, Texas, southward to Puerto de Almeria in Mexico. We're also watching, in addition to our concerns of flooding, we're also watching the storm surge, like I mentioned, 2 to 4 feet possible, as well as winds only likely peaking around 50 miles an hour at its peak. And the National Hurricane Center is expecting this to become a tropical storm by Wednesday, an 80% chance of that occurring. We're also watching flooding being a major concern. Again, the Weather Prediction Center has a moderate risk of flooding throughout this area of southern Texas, including Corpus Christi and the like, perhaps as far south as Brownsville or as far west as Laredo. We'll have to see exactly how bad things get here. Again, the main concern with potential tropical cyclone 1 is going to be the water, the flooding, and that's the main concern with most tropical cyclones, and even, I guess, potential tropical cyclones. Again, peak surge is going to be in Galveston Bay and the surrounding areas, around 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. South of there, all the way down into Texas, or into Mexico, will be 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. And as I mentioned earlier, perhaps as far as Louisiana, getting 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. Again, this area is very storm surge prone. They're used to this. There's a lot of barrier islands. So 1 to 3 feet is really not a big deal. Neither is 2 to 4 for that matter. It could be worse, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Here are the earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds. Again, we're looking at tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, along the Mexican coast, perhaps, again, as far north as Texas. Again, even though this storm makes landfall, or likely will make landfall in Mexico, the worst winds are to the north of the system. As you can see now, that white dot in the center of the screen, the purple area, the area where the tropical storm force winds are currently at, is to the north and well to the north of that system. Here's our area of interest in the southwestern Atlantic, now down to 20% chance of formation. And when we look at the GFS modeled here, in about 3 days from now, it does bring a trough onshore northern Florida. You see a little kind of ridge, I guess, but it's actually a trough of low pressure. But that kind of hill, I guess, on the isobars, along with a little bit of rain into northern Florida. Again, at this point, I've almost dropped all the categories down to nothing in terms of impacts to land. And we're also watching an additional area of interest over the Gulf of Mexico for potential development later this week into this weekend, as we see the GFS 5 days from now does spawn another tropical depression off the Mexico coast, bringing yet more rain and wind to the area. As a result, those flooding concerns could actually be much higher than depicted here. We'll be back with more information as needed. That's all for now. Chris Dixon, InfoWeather Media.